Hello.
Oh,
Oh, you can't see me, can you?
I see you.
I don't know why it did this last time. It's really weird. Hang on. Um, it didn't resolve. I had to kind of go away and come back again. So, okay, let me try again. I don't know why I did this. It's really weird. Everything should be fine. Hang on. Sorry, Leonie.
No worries at all. Don't worry.
Okay, hang on. Give me a minute. I'll come back.
Okay, perfect.
Maybe invite me again. I'll go and then maybe send me the invite again.
Hmm.
Hooray!
Hey, we out.
Sorry about that. I
Not
did it did it last time as well. I don't know, crazy technology.
It's lovely to see you.
And you, how are you?
I'm really good, thank you. I just finished doing a Zen cleanse, colon cleanse yesterday. First time, so I feel full of life.
Wow, how did it go?
Really, really good. Yeah, really great. But that's another conversation, I suppose. Talking about the liver today.
I guess they're all related.
Yeah. So how was your flush on Monday?
Um, it was okay. It wasn't the most productive I've had. I seem to kind of go through phases where I have like a few flushes ago, I was having really, really productive flushes. And that seems to have kind of sort of tapered off a bit now. And the last two were a bit frustrating. I kind of just only getting rid of kind of small handfuls of kind of stuff. But I've
Mm,
been in this game such a long time that and I went through kind of so many years where up to maybe 60% of my flushes didn't result in anything coming out. So
mm,
for me, like even the small flushes are just a big win because it just feels like I just keep chipping away. And it kind of ebbs and flows. So yeah, I mean, I'm flushing again on Sunday.
amazing. So you do twice a month, is it? Or
Right, well, at the moment it's at least once a week.
mm,
So it's been once a week for a while. Since I got the process to work better for me, it's been once a week and occasionally twice a week. I think like when you start out, I mean, obviously I can't speak for everybody, but for me, I found it so hard on my body, like
mm,
because my adrenals were so weak. I really struggled. So I used to kind of have to spend, the kind of the evening in bed, or I'd kind of, I'd feel quite kind of weak and washed out. And sometimes I'd feel quite emotional as well. We talked about that, didn't we, on the phone? But sometimes I'd kind of feel emotional even before I took the oil. It would be like the Epsom salts kind of made, I think if you've kind of got
right,
weak adrenals, they
mm,
they can be quite hard. So yeah, so at the kind of early stages, it was just all I could do to really kind of build it into my life once a month or once every 3 weeks, whereas now I do it in the week. I'm working full time. It's just no big deal at all. I don't get those emotional coaster symptoms. I used to get really cold as well because of the fasting, because
mm,
my liver was so weak. You can't store you can't, your liver doesn't store glycogen properly. Your liver is designed to be able, you're supposed to, in an ideal world, be able to store enough glucose that even when you're fasting, your body releases that glucose, in a kind of a gradual fashion. And you shouldn't get super hungry, you shouldn't get super weak, and you shouldn't get super cold. But
mm.
I experienced all those things really badly. I'd get really, really cold, really, yeah, it was hard. But now I don't get cold, I don't get particularly hungry, I don't get particularly tired. So I feel really fortunate to have pushed on through to this stage now where I can just do it and it's just easy.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's the difficult thing with cleansing, because the more toxic you are, the more awful you feel.
Yeah.
It really seems quite paradoxical to people. If you're doing something to heal your body, why do you feel awful all of a sudden?
Yeah.
Why do you drink the oil mixture and then feel symptoms, feel nauseous, feel tired?
Yeah.
It's because we've got to get that stuff out. And I think that's an important thing we need to start talking about and sharing, and detox, and giving an understanding of how the body actually works.
Yeah.
There's stuff in there, there's toxins in there, there's residues from junk food, chemicals,
Yeah.
stored in the liver, which essentially is the filter system of your body that needs out. And I was just thinking about a simple way to explain this. I feel like liver flushing is the equivalent of changing your filter in your swimming pool.
Yeah.
You know,
Or your car.
dirty. Yeah,
Or your car,
exactly.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because there's a system in place which liver inside the body to begin healing and regenerating itself naturally, but it's clogged, the filter, and we need to start removing the weight on that filter so that it can begin doing the work it's actually meant to be doing, which is filtering the blood, creating enzymes, healing the body. And I think stories of regeneration that people have experienced after cleansing their liver and just really letting the body do its own work of healing are absolutely astonishing. People reversing stage 4 cancer, people reversing all kinds of things, and everything you've been through, I'm not sure I'm comfortable sharing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still a work in progress. So, you know, I don't, sorry?
We all are.
But yes, yeah, we all are. But I don't feel like by any means, wanting to be completely transparent, I haven't come to the end of my journey at all. I'm still, I'm dealing now with things as a result of my age, that women, go through obviously big life changes around their 40s, perimenopause, menopause, these are massive hormonal changes. And like you were saying, one of the liver's chief jobs is to filter and put together and take apart hormone and hormone residues. And, whether that's your sex hormones, whether that's, different steroid hormones, your estrogen, your androgens, even things like your serotonin and your dopamine. All those important hormones are, put together, taken apart, recycled, and then hopefully excreted through bile. But, when you don't have sufficient bile flow, none of those processes work properly. And so what happens is women my age, typically their sex hormone production goes down and their stress hormone levels go up. That's a very common thing, to find that you're running on adrenaline, you're running on cortisol. And, women aren't told why this is happening to them. It's a kind of a horrible sort of conspiracy of silence. They just know that they're experiencing all these difficult symptoms. So at the moment, I would say, I've overcome a lot, but I still have weak adrenal function. I still have menopausal symptoms that I'm dealing with. However, the kind of wonderful thing is that underlying it all is a feeling of real positivity, that actually I'm now going into a phase of health and of life where actually I'm just really excited, which I just wasn't, even 10 years ago when I was in the grip of chronic fatigue. I was existing really. And lately I just feel these shifts inside me. But it's a real seesaw, some days are not good days. So, wanting to be kind of completely kind of honest and open about it, I still have, in between flushes, I can have a bad day and I can feel just really quite down, and, I can still suffer from sort of depression and stuff. But with the cleansing, I'm noticing little shifts all the time. So for instance, 2 months ago, I was waking up repeatedly in the night. I was, having what other symptoms was I having? Kind of just, I was having a lot of menopausal kind of headaches as well, on a regular basis. Like pretty much every day I had a headache, it was like a kind of chronic ongoing thing. And I just haven't had any headaches. So, even though I sometimes still get frustrated because I think the bigger picture is still there, I don't feel like I am as fit as I would like to be or as healthy as I'd like to be. There are little tiny shifts all the time that give me a sense of kind of peace, that I know that I'm going to kind of overcome those as well. So I mean, my story is mainly a story of gut overgrowth. I mean, I from very early on, I had a gut overgrowth problem and very weak adrenals. So I was always ill as a child. And I quite quickly developed a lot of kind of fungal overgrowth symptoms, athlete's foot, all sorts of other unpleasant symptoms, bloating, reactivity, kind of overreactions to foods. Wheat was terrible. I grew up in the 80s and, you would just have bread with everything, cereals, were, the big thing about convenience foods. You'd have Weetabix for breakfast or Shreddies for breakfast, or, I mean, I wouldn't even feed those to a rabbit, never mind a human being. But, nevertheless, that was the way that it was then. And, pasta and I just always, my mum remembers me always getting up from the table after eating a meal and saying, I'm so fat, I'm so ugly. And it was a horrible thing where gluten not only affected me physically, but also affected my mental health. And then when I went, I was a teenager, my hormones were horrendous. My periods started late, and they almost immediately started with horrendous inflammatory symptoms where I'd have to miss school and I'd be doubled up on the bed crying. I didn't understand why was I suffering like this. It was just, everyone, all girls have periods. Why were mine so horrendous? But of course, that liver congestion, that gut overgrowth picture were combining to make me extremely toxic from quite an early age. And I was just always ill. I was always run down. I was always off school. Tonsillitis. I had bronchitis. I had whooping cough. I had endless norovirus, vomiting bugs. I was ill constantly. And then when I was in my 20s, I, tried to lead a normal life. I did on the surface. I went to university. I, managed to, do several degrees to my name. So, I wasn't completely kind of unable to function, but it got deeper. The congestion got deeper. The hormonal dysfunction got deeper. My moods were horrible. I had several relationships where I couldn't, emotionally, I was all over the place, and food always made it worse. I would eat these things and I kind of binge ate because, my blood sugar was all over the place. I finished with partners over stupid things, and I wasn't happy. And then I discovered exercise, which was kind of what I thought was my lifeline, but I overdid it and pushed myself into full-blown chronic fatigue syndrome. And that was at the age of 30, and I just got a new job, which was quite a, you know, busy, stressful job as a lecturer in higher education, and quite quickly couldn't do the job. I had to take some time off, and I was bedbound for a while, so that was when it was at its worst. And that was the point at which I started on my kind of journey to try and discover why I was like I was. You know, I'd seen various doctors in the past. I remember going to see one so-called allergy specialist who I saw many times, and by the end of it he sort of threw up his hands and he went, "I don't know what's wrong with you, maybe you're addicted to food." That was his, because I had this problem where I couldn't stop eating sweet things because I had this, you know, this yeast problem in my gut. But I knew that that wasn't right, and I knew that there was a big failing of the system, because I thought, this, why can't anybody give me a satisfactory answer? And I was put on very strong antifungals, which I think made everything worse. So I was on nystatin, which is a very strong pharmaceutical antifungal drug, for 7 years, which can cause liver damage. And I was on 2 or 3 other strong medications for yeast problems, which again cause liver damage. And I sort of limped on, you know, I just sort of limped on. And then when I had chronic fatigue, stop me if I'm going on too long.
Honestly, I'm amazed how similar your story is to mine. And
really, I mean, yeah, I'm sure it's kind of common for a lot of us with chronic illness, isn't it? It kind of starts off with one thing and then it gets compounded with, you know, with others. And then the worst of it was when I became not only chronically fatigued, but also extremely sensitive to chemicals. So I developed sensitivity and intolerance to almost all chemicals. And that was really bad. I couldn't go into a hairdresser's, I couldn't go into a furniture shop because of the off-gassing of the smells. I couldn't get into a car. If it was a fairly new car, I couldn't get into it because the smell, especially in the heat, of the off-gassing from the plastics. I couldn't go to a petrol station in a car. So if somebody said I need to go and get petrol, I'd have to ask them to drop me off somewhere else so that I didn't have to go to the petrol station. And then I became very allergic to EMFs, to electromagnetic radiation. So I couldn't use a mobile phone. I couldn't use a computer. If I'd used a phone or a computer, my face would go bright red and I get a rash all over my neck and my chest. Yeah, I had to wear this crazy head net to protect me from from radiation. I mean, I think people just must have thought, you know, that's Elizabeth, she's just a crazy person.
wow. And do you think that neurological weakness, that EMF sensitivity, was linked to the antifungals you were putting?
I think it's linked to the yeast overgrowth, actually.
Okay.
I think in fact, when I got a bit better, I did an investigation for a magazine into it, because not much is known, and every single person had candida or yeast overgrowth in their picture. Every single one. So there's something going on there with, I think what it does is it disrupts the ion channels on the cell membrane. And I'm not sure why. I don't know what the connection is between the damp fungal overgrowth and that, but it was in every single picture that I looked at. So yeah, there's a huge underground community of people like this as well. Like, they're not even on the sort of horizon. They're under the radar of a lot of kind of you know, mainstream medical practice, because they're too sick a lot of the time to even go into a hospital or a clinic.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah, I was thinking perhaps it's to do with the myelin sheaths and the adrenals.
Yeah,
Could be.
yeah,
Because I don't think I've experienced EMF sensitivity to the point you described. But when I was poorly, I experienced something very similar. And my understanding is that a healthy nervous system is kind of like an electric wire with like a plastic casing on.
yeah.
But then that gets eaten away by yeast and mold and
Mm.
parasites or whatever. You're just a raw wire in the world.
Yeah,
Everything going straight onto your nervous system. There's no encasing. And
yeah.
it's healing. You need to grow that back a little bit.
Mm.
Working on the adrenals and the myelin sheaths. And
That's interesting. Maybe it's the constant inflammation as well, isn't it? I think possibly the other problem is leaky gut. So when you're getting holes in the epithelium, in the gut tissue, you're getting little particles of food all the time, aren't you? Kind of going through into the bloodstream, which the immune system is then mounting an inflammatory response to. And we know that with autoimmune disease, for instance, leaky gut is a massive, makes a massive contribution. So, yeah, I mean, I think anything that causes gut inflammation and leaky gut in particular is going to lead to widespread, massive immune response in the wrong way.
definitely, definitely.
Yeah,
It can burn your nervous system and you feel it, that feeling of being fried.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
I did. Yeah. Yeah,
and
it was a scary time, and it went on for years, and I honestly just thought I was going to have to live like it.
mm, and so when did the liver come into your life, the liver flushes?
So I was going round and round and round in circles, really trying to find a solution. And this was so I trained as a naturopath, as a nutritionist. I'd been on lots of different things. I'd done different cleanses, different diets. I'd gone low carb for 5 years. I'd done a very strict low carb diet because at the time, the prevailing wisdom was that Candida could be starved out, which of course it can't really, because it will feed on anything. It is an opportunistic organism, and it will feed on your own blood sugar. So even if you're starving, and also it can go into hibernation for years. So it's a very well adapted organism. So it can just lie dormant in your system. So you can think, by going on this low carb diet like I did, oh, I don't feel as sort of overwhelmed by it. But all you're doing is kind of managing it, and any kind of stress will make it flare up. Any illness that you have will make it flare up, and it feels like it's eating you alive. It's a really unpleasant disease, and so little is kind of understood about it. And so I had tried everything. I tried lots of different supplements. I tried lots of different diets. I tried juicing. I tried going carnivore. I tried going vegan. I did everything. And then what happened was I was on Curzone, and somebody had said about Candida diets, because lots of people were talking about Candida diets, because it was a big thing, a big source of people's disease and unhappiness. And somebody said, you can't if you've got flies on the shit pile, you can't just kill the flies, right? So you have to remove the shit pile.
Yeah.
And I don't know why that odd kind of slightly crass phrasing just kind of stuck in my mind, but it did. And I thought, oh, right, okay. So obviously something in my body is allowing it to continue to thrive. And I can't just do that. I can't get rid of it by changing diet. I've got to change the internal conditions. And the same person had said, do liver flushing. So I went and read the book, and I think I did 3 liver flushes, and this was back in about 2010 maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And nothing happened. I didn't get any stones. And after doing it 3 times, I thought, well, this is a load of old rubbish. I obviously don't have any stones. So I left it for a few years, and then I don't know how it happened, but it came back to me somehow. Somebody else had mentioned it, or it had come up on Facebook or something, and I thought, well, and I went back and reread the book, and I thought, I think I'm going to give this another go. And I did it all exactly by the book, and this was about 6 years ago. And I prepped for ages, and I did my first one, and I got stones, and I was so happy. It was quite a big flush, quite a big productive flush. And I woke up the next day, and I think I was going to visit my mum or something, my parents, and I said to my mum, I feel very slightly better.
Oh.
Yeah, it was just this, it wasn't a massive leap, but it was a small one, and it was the first glimmer of hope that I'd had for a really long time. And you know, that was all I needed really. And then I just got the bit between my teeth, and then I started doing it. But my problem is that I couldn't make much progress, because quickly I hit a brick wall, and I couldn't get any stones out. I would just, you know, I'd go 2 steps forward, and then I'd go 2 or 3 steps back sometimes. I think I had so much congestion, and I think that when you have candida, there's this sticky stuff that I've talked about before, you know, this biofilm. And actually, stop me if it's too much information, but I think I'm now 6 years in, going through some major retracing. So I've started to notice that I think I'm eliminating a lot of candida from the liver. Okay. So when sort of yeast goes into its kind of more aggressive form, it makes little hyphae, which are like little threads. And I'm seeing this stuff coming out after a liver flush now. And it's also coincided with some strange symptoms I only had in my 20s. So one thing that I'm going through right now is I can only wear silver in my ears, which is very odd, because for the last kind of 20 years, I could wear anything in my ears without a problem. But about 20 years ago, I had quite an odd flare-up of sensitivity to earrings. I could only wear silver for a few years. And then it sort of went away, and I thought nothing more of it. And these past 2 weeks, I've started to get this flare up in my ears again, the itching, the soreness, and I have to only wear silver now. And so I'm wondering if maybe, it sounds crazy, but I think when you're kind of in touch with your body, you're really kind of led by your intuition, aren't you? And you can really hear and feel what's going on. And I really think that maybe I'm going back and digging through some nasty stuff from my 20s.
No, it makes sense completely. If you're digging into layers that have been there for however long,
yeah,
they're going to have that effect in your body.
Yeah, it's like kind of mining, you know, it's like being a miner, and just kind of chipping through the bedrock that's kind of gone back for sort of seemingly like, you know, hundreds of years, although obviously it's not. But you know, I think sometimes people who I know are kind of put off by doing a flush, because they see me and they know that I've done 92 flushes, and they think, well, I don't want to be doing it for that long. But I really don't think it's necessarily the same for everybody. I don't think I've had a particularly, you know, straightforward time of it, but I do think that there are lots of people who are making quicker progress than I have. And I think the younger that you are, you know, the less chronically ill you've been, you know, people can make faster progress than me. I've seen some amazing stuff on Instagram recently, a guy who's done his 30th liver flush, he's kind of got, he's getting rid of stones kind of like that.
Mm,
So I think, we all heal at different rates. But I'm just kind of now just feel like chipping away every week. And every week I'm seeing these little shifts, and I'm feeling really hopeful and excited about the future now. So,
amazing, amazing. Yeah, I think that's the daunting thing about going into this journey, is that once you start, everyone says you're not meant to stop, because you want to um, keep the larger stones from getting stuck in the bile ducts, and that's something that daunts me a little bit, but I'm hoping my journey won't be too long. I've only done 3 flushes, but I have done a lot of work with the beetroot juice and the celery juice, which was certainly not for the faint of heart. It seems to be
yeah.
something easy to do, but
Do you want to share a bit about what you've been doing with the juicing? Because I'm definitely interested in hearing more about it.
yeah, so I come from a similar place health-wise with you. I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia and spent 3 years of my life really on my deathbed, in awful pain. And throughout that time, I was able to do a lot of research on health, um, reading studies, watching lectures all day, every day, and ended up becoming incredibly knowledgeable, and began experimenting on my own body with everything and anything, like I'm sure you have done. And the thing that really saved me more than anything is the juicing, and the juice fasting in particular. And I think that's because it takes the load off the colon, allows the body to spend all that energy elsewhere. I mean, we spend like 40% of our total energy on digestion. And in terms of the liver, I feel like I always had an intuitive feeling my liver was quite congested even before I got poorly, because I was into Chinese face mapping and traditional Chinese medicine. And between the eyebrows here on the forehead is the part of the face that reflects the liver. I've always had a little red kind of patch of skin there.
Right.
And
That's
I
really
always
interesting.
felt connected to the liver, which it definitely is. And then one of my symptoms I dealt with for a while was waking up every night at 3 a.m. feeling nauseous.
Right.
And bodies are on a circadian rhythm.
Mm.
3 a.m., I think it's 3 a.m. to 5 a.m. is when the liver starts naturally cleansing and healing.
Yeah.
And I wake, oh gosh, feel that going on. So I began doing a lot of beetroot juice. And I could feel that when I drank it, the bile in my body was actually, old bile was being pushed out,
Oh,
because it made me nauseous, it made me feel tired. But then the next day, well, after a period of time of doing it, I wouldn't be waking up in the night anymore. And also
amazing.
the symptoms I was dealing with connected to my liver, which is
Yeah.
a lot of holding on to things.
Yeah.
Began to dissipate. And now I am dipping my toe into the realms of liver flushing. Did one, when was my last one? I think on last Thursday.
And how did
Um,
that go?
it went really well. I was surprised actually, because as some people, they get their results straight away. For me, it takes a little bit longer. So I'm kind of, excitedly waiting for Christmas morning. I got out, yeah, probably 50 thumbnail sized stones.
Very good.
I did get that feeling people talk about after doing it, where I just had this like, it's like you don't realize your breathing's restricted
Mm.
until your liver or do something with your body.
Mm.
Like, take a deep breath and not feel this tightness on the right
Mm.
colon.
Yeah.
Felt really nice. I have to say, it didn't last very long,
Yeah.
because I do a lot more of them. But I really feel that this is the missing link for me in my health.
Mm.
And yeah, why do I feel that way? I think it's an intuitive feeling, and on some of the fasts I've been doing recently, because I fast for my health, I've just begun getting that pressure on,
Mm.
and I think that's a sign that I do need to dig deeper.
Mm.
As much as juicing is very easy and straightforward, it makes sense to me because of what my body's been through, because of the medications I was put on as a child and as a baby.
Mm.
Myself an extra push
Yeah.
to get those out. Yeah, and Andreas Moritz just really, really resonates with me a lot, and I think there are all these amazing natural remedies available to us to cleansing and
Yeah.
healing process. Because when I look at pictures of people's massive liver stones online, it would take years of water fasting and juice fasting to break that down. The body's just not able to.
That's
And that's
right.
what we're dealing with in this time. So when you think about it, a liver flush isn't crazy. It's not extreme.
No, it's not. And also, you know, in a way, you know, one of the things I always think about is, well, you know, there's other ways that the liver uses to detox, and it needs certain tools that that might not be obvious. You know, a lot of toxins are fat soluble. A lot of toxins are excreted through the body through the use of amino acids, through protein. But you don't often hear about fat and protein being used as so-called detox or superfoods. You know, so there's a bigger picture, I think, and you know there is a lack of understanding about what you know what the liver needs, I think, to do its job more efficiently. And I think it's such a kind of crying shame that something so simple and so cheap, I mean, the liver flush is possibly, in terms of kind of the ratio of effectiveness to cost analysis or cost price, is it must be the most effective, surely, because it's basically a home remedy that you can't patent, really. I mean, I know that there are companies out there, possibly some dubious companies. I think Zen Cleanse, to me, sounds like a great, kind of a rare exception of a great company, you know, that are really kind of opening up possibilities of how they can make the flush and that process easier for people. I haven't done one myself. I would love to do one, but it's slightly kind of out of my price bracket at the moment. Did you find the colon? They do a colon cleanse, don't they? Is that the one you use?
Yeah, so I just did my colon cleanse yesterday, and really, I mean, I'm not one for talking up products, but oh my goodness, there is something in the enzymes.
Yeah.
I will feels very beneficial to the body. It makes sense to me that we have unfortunately got residues of stuff in our body that perhaps isn't digestible by the body.
Yeah.
Need an extra help. I like the way people describe the enzymes as little Pac-Men.
Yes,
Go in,
absolutely.
do everything up, and then it
Yeah.
can be. Yeah, I'm very interested to see where enzymes will take me. I think
Yeah.
there's definitely to that, and yeah, the liver flush too. And it's one of those things people, like we were saying, people see it as something unnatural, but actually the liver flush was not invented by Andreas Moritz. It's a
No.
Greek remedy that people discovered intuitively.
Yeah. I
And
know. Do you know? I sometimes wonder how, like, how you would discover, because obviously somebody discovered it maybe by accident. In which case, like, what would you be doing to kind of accidentally put together that volume of oil or fat, and then something citrusy? It's an odd one, isn't it?
It's interesting though. It makes sense to me because after some of my longer juice fasts, I would break them with a salad with lots of fat in and lots of citrus.
Right.
and it was pushing something out of me.
Right. That's
Body
interesting.
intuitively
Yeah.
putting me flush.
Well, maybe you're onto something. Maybe
Mm,
it was discovered after a fast, which would
mm,
make sense. Because
yeah.
obviously we know that ancient cultures, enjoyed or promoted fasting as a way of kind of helping the body, into a state of kind of autophagy, or breaking down old matter and cleansing. So maybe somebody broke their fast with some olive oil and lemon juice.
I would say so. That's when the body speaks loudest.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I'm really excited by hearing people's stories of getting off transplant lists.
that's amazing. Where have you heard about that?
It's not a transplant, is it, for your gallbladder? It's just a removal. In the Facebook group, there's
Ah,
hundreds.
yeah. Mm-hmm. Have saved their gallbladders.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
surgery is necessary. We can just go and drink a little bit of olive oil and lemon
yeah,
juice and
yeah.
save. And I think that's a really powerful message, and I really respect you for sharing that. And yeah,
I mean,
singing.
I just want to get the message out there. I think I think a lot of people are intimidated by it. I think that's still kind of a stumbling block, that a lot of people they're worried about something going wrong. They're intimidated about the process. I've tried to get my mother to do one, but she has a fear of being sick, so she's not going to do it. And also, she's probably getting on a bit now to do it. But she has so many problems. Like, she had her gallbladder out, and the thing is like, it's touted as this kind of fairly easy, not fairly easy, I mean, it's surgery, but a kind of a remedy for this problem. If you've got gallstones, if you've got digestive issues, if you've got kind of, this repeated kind of, heartburn and pain under your rib cage, just whip out the gallbladder. But the gallbladder does such an important job, and without it, you just can't store enough bile to really, do what you need to do to emulsify, to break down, emulsify fats, to break down food, to break down hormones, to balance your blood sugar, all the things that concentrated bile will help to do. Yeah, to help absorb fat soluble vitamins, so people kind of develop all these problems. And my mother, unfortunately, is one who, she's got now heart, awful kind of gastric kind of heartburn, that she has acid reflux, which she has all the time, itching that she has all over her body. So having your gallbladder out will unfortunately lead to more problems. So it's not a quick fix. People should never believe what they're told, that this is something they can just go on and live their life as normal. You have to be prepared to deal with the consequences, and unfortunately it can be quite devastating, I think.
Yeah, I agree completely. I think people who've had their gallbladders taken out often, well, almost always end up with lots of colon issues. It puts a lot of strain on the spleen,
Yeah,
and of course on the liver.
yeah,
Yeah, and that's why it's important to educate people on early signs of liver toxicity that you see 8 years before you even, have gallbladder pain and need to negotiate what it would be like to have a removal.
yeah,
Skin conditions, often the liver, psoriasis,
yeah,
acne, hair loss, hormonal issues like you were
yeah,
mentioning, period. In
yeah,
my, it's the colon and the liver entirely,
yeah.
perhaps a bit more than the colon. And I don't know a single woman in my life who doesn't have period pain.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, as we were saying before on the phone, I think these problems are getting more endemic, and they're getting more severe for people at an earlier age. So people are, showing up with, gut disorders earlier, and the liver is taking the hit. The gut and the liver are totally connected, and generally speaking, it usually starts with the gut. the gut is not being, populated from the
Mm.
right, with the right microflora from the get-go. And, it's not a case of kind of making judgments about people on a personal level. It's just the way that the pharmaceutical and the medical establishment is set up now. There's a whole kind of a perfect storm of factors, from medicalized pregnancy and delivery, to having to take antibiotics kind of after delivery, C-sections. I mean, I'm talking about my own story here with my son, and all those steps along the way, and then formula feeding as well. All those steps are unfortunately setting up, the conditions for, a poor microbiome. And once you've got a poor microbiome and you've not got the biodiversity, the healthy biodiversity in the gut, you're going to get inflammation and you're going to get enormous amounts of endotoxin. And what's going to have to deal with the endotoxin is the liver. And the liver doesn't know what to do, can't eliminate all this because bile function is compromised. And it's parceling up all this endotoxin in a little fatty parcel and storing it in the liver. So, I mean, I think that gallstones and liver stones, I mean, who knows? They could be happening in utero.
I would not be surprised, unfortunately.
No, I wouldn't be surprised either. And, then the baby is born, and, if they're not breastfed, or even if they are breastfed, I mean, I breastfed for 3.5 years. My son has a whole host of health problems. So unfortunately, if the quality of the breast milk is not great, or if the mother has a large amount of endotoxin and the endotoxin is probably ending up in the breast milk, or there's, other chemicals and byproducts which the liver can't process ending up in the breast milk, then the baby is getting those. So I'm now seeing, and I'm sure you picked up on this too, younger and younger generations of children walking around, and you can see the toxicity in their faces, and you can see, things like the endocrine dysfunction in their bodies, overweight children within, growing, all the signs of kind of type 2 diabetes or insulin resistance.
Definitely.
So there's going to be, a huge need, I think, for people to be able to have kind of alternative ways of helping themselves in the future. And so I personally feel, I don't want to speak to you, but it sounds like maybe you do too, that you're passionate about wanting to send the message to people that actually they've got to take it into their own hands, because the medical establishment is not, it's waking up to some aspects, isn't it? I mean, news about the gut is there's more information now coming out about the role of the microbiome in lots of diseases, which is great, but it's not translating into actual real medical practice, is it?
Definitely. And I think the most valuable thing people can do is wake up to the reality that we are giving our bodies more than they can handle. And the result of that is needing to do something supportive for yourself. And I think the pitfalls of a lot of the health information out there is that it's very inaccessible. It's hard to understand, it's in difficult language, there's a lot of fear mongering. And unfortunately, everybody seems to be given ambiguous diagnoses for their health issues. This is just something that floats around in the air, and they caught it, and no one really knows why. No one knows where it came from, particularly autoimmune. But I think the great thing about liver flushing and the information about the liver and how it can empower you to heal yourself as we begin looking upstream and finding the root of these health issues. And more often than not, it is some form of accumulated toxicity. which at the end of the day is a great thing if you realize that about yourself, because it's reversible.
Yes.
That drive for a better life, that drive to get back to how you felt, or maybe even didn't feel as a child, is the resilience that will pull you through the liver flushing. And I think creating communities where people can talk about these things and cheer each other on, acknowledge how far we've all come in our health. And even anyone on this call right now, you've come a massive way in sharing about your health. And we have got the question, Svet is asking, what is a liver flush?
The all-important question.
It's a term, isn't it? I think if I heard that out of the blue, I'd be quite confused.
Yeah, if you just joined and you're like, what is this crazy thing? So I don't know if you want to take that question, Leonie, or you want me to answer it.
Yeah, I mean, so my understanding is that a liver flush is a health process we enter into in order to remove accumulated toxicity from the liver. There's a lot of big words there. So basically,
Sounds right.
Live on a fat-free, usually plant-based, some people do it differently, diet for 7 days, and then on the 7th day we drink a concoction, an ancient Greek concoction, lemon juice and trusty olive oil. And what this does is it spasms the liver in such a way that all the small stones, because the liver collects accumulated toxicity in small stones that kind of look like peas, sometimes chickpeas, sometimes a bit bigger, it spasms them out of the bile ducts into the colon, and eventually they'll be removed from your body when you go to the bathroom. And the process is incredibly beneficial because what we're doing is performing, some people kind of think of it like a natural surgery on your liver, in that you're taking out what shouldn't be there by now, that are cheap, that are safe, that are easy, and experiencing amazing, some cases life-saving results. And
I mean, I genuinely think that if I hadn't not only discovered liver flushing, but continued despite repeated failure to progress with it, I think if I hadn't just had that dogged determination, I really dread to think where I would be today. You know, having the occasional insights into, you know, when I've said earlier, I do still have, you know, the occasional bad day. And I just think of what it would be like if my life was just that bad day every day. I mean, I think I'd probably be on multiple medications. I think I'd probably be on antidepressants. I think I'd definitely be on some kind of HRT. I think, I don't know if my relationship with my partner would have survived. I dread to think what the relationship with my son would be like. Yeah, I mean, it's been quite rocky, but now I'd say my good days are at least as frequent as my bad days, if not more so. I'd say, no, definitely I have more good days than bad days now. But the bad days and the bad moments, sometimes it's not even a full day. Sometimes I'll have like a bad few hours, and then it's like my body has enough defenses, if you like, to sort of climb out of it by itself. It's weird. It's like I'll go through a dip. And I think that's just living or recovering from, you know, so many years of chronic illness. And I'll just think, you know, it'd be so horrible being in that bad dip. And I just think, crikey, you know, I'm just, thank God for flushing. And then I generally just plan then my next flush, because I don't want to live in this, but, you know, I don't want to live in that bad day, and I don't want to live in that bad few hours at all. So it's like the contrast, and the contrast between the bad dips or the bad days and the amazing post-flush euphoria, which I've said before, and I'm not ashamed to say it, is like being on the best drugs. It really is. It's like you know, that advert where the little girl comes out into the field and she goes, hello sky, hello trees, hi, you know, it's just like, hello birds. You know, I never thought that I'd be able to just access that, you know, in my mid to late 40s. You know, the pattern is usually the other way, you know, isn't it? You kind of have those feelings when you're younger, and then when you're older, that sort of ability to kind of connect with life, you know, gets harder. And for me, I definitely feel like I'm reversing that trend, and I love that feeling so much that to me, I'm chasing that, you know. I keep, that's my thing that just keeps me going, because it's such a wonderful feeling. It's such a wonderful experience to walk out into the world and to just feel in love with the world and in love with life. And for so long, I felt totally disconnected from other people. I felt disconnected from my body. I felt disconnected from the world. So, yeah.
That's so beautiful to hear. Thank you so much for that. And
that's okay.
amazing to hear that and acknowledge that actually you didn't take anything. Nothing changed. All you were experiencing is how your body's meant to feel without that toxic accumulation.
Yeah.
And that's where you're able to navigate your symptoms and know that if you feel a dip, it's because your body's burdened by something.
Yeah.
And I think that's really powerful, especially with the mental spirals people can get themselves in these days.
Yeah. And it's terrifying. I think in some ways, even though a lot of my past symptoms were physical, I think the mental stuff is almost worse. The deep, you know, I had a lot of, after I had my son, I had terrible anxiety, and I had that for several years. Really, really bad, crippling anxiety. I'd never had it before, and it was so awful. It's just such a horrible place to be. You know, depression and anxiety, or, you know, those kind of, you know, panic attacks or bipolar or whatever it is, that hideous feeling that cripples people's lives as well as the physical stuff. I think that is just having had an insight into that, you know, I never want to go back to it, you know, and I believe that this process will, you know, open me up emotionally and spiritually and take me into new places and new directions. And that's how we should be. It's so awful that people live like this. It's so tragic.
Definitely. We become so used to a standard of living that I think is quite poor emotionally and physically.
Yeah.
And I think maybe that's the key here when you were talking earlier on about the feeling like your flushes had failed and feeling something that was driving you forward. It's that knowing, so many of us have, probably all of us have, that there is perhaps a better way of life, and it begins with how you feel in your body and how you feel in your mind.
Yeah.
Is that driving you forward just after those?
Yeah, and it brings me on to the really important point, is that you know, we live in a society now which has taught us that the mind and the body I think we talked about this on the phone, didn't we? That the mind and the body are two separate things, that they are disconnected from each other, that you can't access a better mind through a better body. I mean, there are, you know, that's a generalization. Obviously, you know, there's kind of some sort of fairly mainstream, you know, advice about, you know, eating well and exercising so that you feel good. And of course, you know, those things are true. I'm not discounting that. But nevertheless, you know, the idea that you could get rid of depression or you could get rid of anxiety or, you know, associated conditions through cleansing your body, kind of pilloried and sort of undermined and laughed at, as seen as the most kind of leftist kind of woo nonsense, new age nonsense. But actually, that is it. I mean, if you can cleanse at a deep level and remove the obstructions in your liver and clean your colon, if if that is appropriate in your case, you can live a free, mentally a freer a life. It can give you amazing happiness and freedom. You will see you are able to reframe your reality. Even if it doesn't change your material circumstances, you will start to see things differently. You will experience connection more readily with other people and with the world around you. It's that awful feeling of being disconnected from your true self. I think that is just, so many of us are just walking around just disconnected from ourselves.
Yeah, I agree completely. And this is an area of detox I'm so, so passionate about, because I think there's just such a massive missing puzzle piece when it comes to health, and in particular mental health.
Yeah.
Everyone has heard the general consensus that, well, depression and anxiety, that's a neurotransmitter imbalance. It's like, yeah,
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
What balanced? Where did that come from?
Yeah, exactly.
Did that come from your endocrine glands? Did it
Yeah.
come from your liver and your colon? Actually, it came from all four of them.
Yeah.
And how did it accumulate? How did it build up? How do we change that?
Yeah.
And then start boosting your neurotransmitters.
Yeah.
It's a relatively simple process, but you just got to commit the time to it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think over the phone, one of my favorite and most jaw-dropping studies I ever read that I will always remember said that people with severe cases of hepatitis, which essentially is severe liver toxicity and inflammation, have been known to crawl around on the floor and bark like a dog. That is a registered symptom that doctors look for and see frequently.
Oh
Okay,
my God.
that in because it shows you the behavioral implications of a toxic organ in your body. Okay, and these are the big questions we need to start asking. Many people suffering desperately in
I know.
homes and asylums are dealing with incredibly burdened, painful bodies.
I know.
Okay,
And what? Sorry, Jodie. I was just going to say, why are we not asking the questions about why are we not making the connections? Because a lot of those people, or most of those people, you look back a generation or two, and there's alcoholism, or there's some deep constitutional picture that's being passed down through the generations. And my nutrition teacher used to say that it goes from the lower organs to the higher organs as it moves down the generations. So, it will go from for instance, I talk about my own family. My grandmother had allergies, mildly. My mother had deep kind of allergies, and she had digestive problems, and she had candida overgrowth. She gave birth to me. I had all those things, and then I had hormonal problems, and I had anxiety and depression. My son, who's 4 generations on now, he has all those problems, and he has severe behavioral and so-called neurological problems. Those neurological problems haven't come out of a vacuum. They have accumulated from generations of toxicity that have not been addressed.
Yeah.
And we're not making those connections. We're not allowed to make those connections. And nobody seems curious to be making those connections. Why are we not talking more about why people are crawling around the floor barking like dogs?
Exactly.
Why are we not asking why? Like, what is going on at an organic level that is happening?
Exactly. It's so important, and it makes complete sense what we're saying, well, what you're saying with the generational toxicity, because we're all aware of epigenetics now. That's talked about. And so it makes sense that actually the cell replicates at the level of its genetic blueprint, its own constitution.
Yeah.
And the genetic makeup of a body and its cells are almost spliced. That's what happens when a genome's damaged through a lifetime. That's passed down to the next generation. And like you said, in my family, the health issues my grandmother got at 70, my mother got at 40, and I got it.
There you go. Earlier and earlier and earlier.
Because we're not it. And it's so important. And
I think that's why it's such a disservice for people to believe that, you know, things like, okay, so in my son's case, you know, ADHD, for instance, it's such a disservice to people to write it off as genetic, because actually, as you say, epigenetics are genetics which are switched on or off by the environment of the body. These are not predetermined pathways. They are things that are turned on and switched on usually by toxicity elsewhere in the body. And, you know, a lot of the time it starts at the level of the gut. So, yeah, I mean, it just drives me nuts.
passion though, and it's great. I think at the end of the day, what we're saying is so amazing because it's so empowering. Genes are not these stuck things you're born with and have to live with forever. They change, they mold, and we have so much more power over our bodies and our circumstances than we realize.
Yeah.
But
And it's kind of, sorry, and I was just going to say, and it's giving people that information, isn't it? How can we best communicate? And I guess one of the answers is you start with yourself. Like, I feel like now I'm having conversations with people who are drawn to seeing the changes in me, hopefully. You know, not everyone's necessarily wants to kind of, you know, jump on board or whatever, but it starts with yourself. And I think once you show people the progress that you've made, then people do start asking questions. But like I was saying with, you know, Marta the other week, you know, you can't bring a horse to water and make it drink. You know, people have to want to do it for themselves. And I think partly that's through desperation, isn't it? It's through being failed by mainstream, you know, the mainstream medical pathway.
Yeah, definitely. And like I said before on the phone, I feel that people are very ready to make that leap now.
Yeah.
But the barrier that stops them from going from mainstream medical understanding that the body is just something that falters and breaks and you have to deal with it, to the natural understanding that I kind of keep, that is, you can heal your body, you can heal your life, there's always a way, there's a reason, there's a root cause, we can find it.
Yeah.
It's this bridge of grief that needs to be walked over, this grief of realizing, oh, I didn't need to have that surgery, I had a colon surgery, unfortunately, and I didn't. It's the grief of, oh, that birth control pill I was on for years now affecting my fertility. It's giving me painful, it's giving me hair loss, it's giving me acne. All these things need to come to terms with, really.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you can only start from where you are, and it's kind of just, it's not going to be a quick fix. You know, most people have taken their entire lifetime to get to the desperate state that they've got to. You know, in my own case, that's 42 years of toxicity that I'm having to dig back through. So it's not a quick fix. And I think sometimes people will go for the quick fixes first. So they will sort of fiddle around the edges. They might take a supplement or two. They might change their diet a bit. And that's all a great start. It's just a process of opening up the mind. And as you say, coming to terms with the fact that no one's going to wave a magic wand. No one's got a quick fix solution for you, unfortunately. But it's just taking that first step and as you say, maybe finding a community or finding people who've been there before. And that's why it's so important, I think, you know, when Facebook, finding people on Facebook who'd done 200 flushes or 250 flushes. You know, if I hadn't known about that, I might have given up and thought, well, I've made a few gains with this liver flushing business, but not that many. Obviously, it doesn't work. You know, Andreas Moritz said you only need to do 15 or 30 or whatever it is he says. So maybe it doesn't work. If it hadn't been for those people sharing their stories on Facebook, I absolutely owe them everything, because they took the time. They got through to the other side, so they were living these amazing lives, but they took the time to say, we think Andreas Moritz underestimated, with this toxic world that we all live in, how many some people might need to do. Not everybody needs to do that number, obviously. You know, some people really won't need to do that many, but it was just knowing that that was a possibility, and that if you just carried on putting one foot in front of the other, just keep going as hard as it is, chip away, eventually you start to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And yeah, that was so important, kind of hearing those people's experiences.
Yeah, and so just to put that into perspective for people watching, 200 liver flushes, we're talking about over 10 stones, more?
I think, yeah. I mean, again, it depends how many stones people release at a time. That's the other thing. You know, some people have livers that are quite generous and tend to give up their pearls of a lot easier, more easily, and therefore it doesn't take them as many flushes. But I routinely have flushes where maybe I only get rid of a small handful of stones, a little bit of sludge. You know, sometimes I have bigger flushes than that, but often I don't. And so I just keep chipping. And I think that I've just got lots and lots of yeast, unfortunately, nasty stuff in that sludge, which is making everything sticky and band together. But I don't think that's the same for everybody.
Okay. Well, hopefully you can start experimenting with some beetroot juice. Maybe that's...
I'm definitely going to look into that. I'm slightly worried about the whole stomachache situation, because it did really kind of upset my stomach.
Don't know. Maybe that's something we can explore, and I'll send you some juice recipes.
Great. Lovely. Look forward to it.
So I just before we come to the end of this conversation, I would love to know a bit more about the work you've been doing for your son, if you're comfortable about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as we talked about before, kind of, in this conversation on the phone, my son, so my son's 9, and early on, he developed quite a few health problems. He was, not serious ones. So a lot of people would just look at him and say, oh, wow, he's really healthy. But I just knew, because I have, I kind of had insight into what was going on. So, he had constipation. Even though I was breastfeeding, he reacted to foods with a lot of, he had like lots and lots of gas, and quite colicky. And then just very, very strong-willed, to the point at which we've actually just had his diagnosis. So yesterday, after a 4-year wait, we finally got his diagnosis. So he's got a diagnosis of ADHD, but he's also got oppositional defiant disorder, which is basically a behavioural issue, which is enormous need to control everything. So it kind of makes sense. The liver holds on to anger. It's also, the adrenals and the liver together, when they're stressed, control is a big thing. Often seen in autism as well, the need for control. So he doesn't have autism. So he goes to a mainstream school, and he's very sociable. He's very popular. He's very bright, but he's extremely willful, and we've been dealing with lots of quite aggressive behavior for a number of years, aggressive towards us and so on. So I've spent a long time trying to recover him as well as to recover myself, and he's got he's got yeast issues as well, as you would expect, you know, given my history. Now, actually, he did a liver flush. He did 3 liver flushes when he was quite young. And his first liver flush was amazing. And he had a really big release. And it was amazing because for about 4 weeks after that, he was a totally different child. So
Wow.
he was really sweet, compliant, all traces of ODD just completely vanished. He was such a lovely little boy, and it was quite heartbreaking because obviously what happened then was the congestion, as we know, starts to move down from the back of the liver towards the front, and it blocks the ducts again. And by that time, he was quite phobic about doing the flush, and you can't really blame him because he was little, and you know, getting a child to swallow an enormous drink of citrus and olive oil, he just started to gag. He was like, I can't do it. So of course I couldn't kind of force him to do it. So he hasn't really done one. I think he's done 2 since, but they were kind of partial failures because he couldn't drink all of the oil drink. So unfortunately, it was stupid on my part because I should have waited until he was older and he could understand and make a choice for himself. Because what happened is, as you said, you should never start liver flushing if you don't intend to carry on. And so his last flush was several years ago, and it's left him in this state now where he obviously has, you know, quite a congested liver. And, you know, we have to live with that until he's ready to do it again of his own volition. So I've treated him with lots of different things. We've done kind of different protocols. He doesn't eat gluten, he doesn't eat dairy, and we try to limit sugar, but because he's got a gut overgrowth, he's obsessed with sweet things, he's obsessed with starchy white flour foods, and it's really hard because he's a growing kid, and it's quite hard to find enough things to sort of satisfy him, and yeah, it's tricky. But the things we've been doing lately, which I think have made a difference in terms of his overall ability to function, is that we use a foot bath, which is an ionic foot bath, which is made by this American company, which I think is a brilliant device. And I really wouldn't say that if we hadn't kind of seen gains from it, but it's made by a company called A Major Difference, AMD. And there is a UK supplier here. It's very, very expensive. I was lucky enough to find one secondhand on Facebook in the UK, so I bought it with so much trepidation because it was still a lot of money, and we just tried so many things. Because you do, don't you? When you've been chronically ill, you try so many things, and 80% of them, 90% of them don't really do much. Yeah, so I bought this foot bath machine, and for the first year we used it. Every time he had a foot bath, he had a meltdown afterwards. So it was just awful. I was thinking this is not going to work, but I was just kind of encouraged by all the community on Facebook who were using this foot bath mostly on autistic kids, and it was just, you know, every time he used it, he would get really aggressive and upset afterwards. But it was obviously some kind of healing crisis. But it just went on and on and on. And then I realized that it was possibly displacing too much toxicity and that he needed some kind of binder or something to mop it up. So that's when I toyed with various things that didn't really work. But I bought some powdered zeolite, which is this amazing mineral which has a sort of cage-like structure and can trap and hold on to heavy metals and other positively charged toxins. And as soon as I added that, it was fine. It was like a switch.
The meltdown stopped.
Yes, the meltdown stopped. And now when we cleanse using the foot bath, he gets lovely and sleepy, so he yawns a lot, and that's obviously a sign that his nervous system is relaxing. The parasympathetic branch of the nervous system switches on, and that's when healing happens, because obviously healing can't really happen if somebody's very, very stressed, and he's in a state of stress all the time. So we've been using that. We use the zeolite, and we had great success with a liquid probiotic called Micromax. Unfortunately, with a lot of these things, is they work for a time and then they stop working, because if you don't change the terrain, if you can't change the microbiome significantly, and you don't have the nice alkalizing bile washing through the digestive tract and helping to give the right conditions for the bacteria to flourish, eventually, often these supplements stop working.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, we had a 6-week honeymoon with the Micromax, and we had some amazing results with it. But then the difficult behavior came back. So we now switched supplements. He's now on a new probiotic, and I'm also going to try him on some liposomal glutathione, which should help the liver, and also something called nucleotides, which are, I believe, building blocks of DNA, which are supposed to be kind of special immune proteins. So it's just constantly trying to mix things up. It's just difficult because his body or his gut adapts each time, and then we have to try something new. So, but the foot bath was the thing that got my flushes to be more successful.
Really?
So yeah, it was a coincidence that I just one day, I was so sick of having these unproductive flushes. I thought, oh, I'll just try my son's foot bath, see what happens. And I just tried it once, and then I think the next day I did a flush, and it was a success. And it just I didn't connect the two things for ages. And then I went back to having like non-productive flushes and things. And I was just like, what did I do differently that one time? And then I realized, I was like, oh, maybe I'll try the foot bath again.
Wow.
And yeah, I now use it regularly. So I would say for most people, I think just doing the protocol with some additional measures, play around with herbs, with other things to get the flush to work for you. And there are other things you can do. But for people who are experiencing repeated non-productive flushes like I was, if all else fails, this foot bath is amazing.
Wow, that's amazing to hear. And the results you had with your son and the foot bath is amazing. It just really shows how much of this kind of epidemic of behavioral issues and struggles like that are rooted in physical toxicity, liver toxicity, heavy metal.
Yeah.
Wow.
I wish there was more research into it, because it just seems such a crying shame that we're just abandoning what feels like a generation of children to suffer quite extreme mental and behavioral issues. And it's a conversation for another time. I mean, I'm not going to go on about it, but I feel that we live in a culture of enabling, whereby the emphasis is on the enabling and the acceptance of what I consider to be toxic states, which is that we don't want to talk about why somebody is the way they are. We don't want to look for ways in which we can help them. We can't talk about overcoming these issues because culturally it isn't an acceptable way to talk about it. We have to just accept neurodiversity as this kind of, I am going to sound like a complete reactionary. I'm going to stop it there. But I have a problem with this concept of neurodiversity. I think it's hugely unfair. I think it's nonsense, most of it, from what I can tell. There's nothing in the literature to even back it up. If you try and find literature to explain neurodiversity, a lot of it will talk about endocrine dysfunction just in another way. So why are we not allowed to discuss it? Because there's obviously something organic going on at a physical level, but it's a big conversation. So
It is a big conversation, but in essence, what we're saying is with any issue in the body or in the mind, it is very, very, very sensible to address it, not just by looking at the emotional side of things,
Yeah.
making a happy life for yourself, but also looking at your body and figuring out what could be going on there. Because you can always, well, in most cases, find more relief for yourself, find an improvement in your circumstances mentally and physically. And that's a massive advocate for in terms of anxiety and depression. I have to say I don't know much about neurodiversity in the physical body. That's something I have to research more, but there is so much we don't know, and there are so many ways we can relieve someone's suffering and make them better and more comfortable. And that's what I mean. I think it's so amazing you found the foot baths for your son. That's something so many people would never even think of, and the amount of research and trial and error I'm sure you went through to find that.
Yeah. All I can say is, you know, there are lots of downsides about the internet and the age of the internet, I think, but there are also some amazing upsides, some amazing advantages of discovering communities of people who may be suffering in the way that you are. And I just hope that, you know, going forward with all the censorship, you know, that we all know that is kind of limiting, you know, kind of collective kind of action and things, that we can always find a way to communicate with other people, and not, you know, so these platforms are so essential, I think.
Definitely. And I'm very grateful to the Interweb Machine for connecting me with you and
Absolutely.
learning about liver flushes. So maybe we just start rounding things off there. If there's anything else you'd like to add.
I don't think we've had any other questions. We had one question, didn't we, which was what is a liver flush, which is obviously the most kind of important question. But have we seen any other? Do we have any other questions? Don't think so. But maybe on a future occasion we can do another one. And if people want to send in questions, that's always quite nice, isn't it?
I would love that, and perhaps we can talk about the juicing and experiments we've done.
We could talk about other things that can kind of maybe help with the flush, maybe of sort of secondary things or additional things that we do to kind of make it work better. That would be great.
Sounds perfect. I really look forward to it, and I'm so grateful for your time today and all your and your journey.
Absolutely welcome, Leonie. I'm really pleased that you asked me, and really lovely to connect with you. So yes, anytime.
Perfect. Thank you. Your passion honestly shines through so much on this topic. It's really great to hear and really inspiring.
Thank you.
My next one.
I'm so excited for you. Yes, I mean, you know, just good luck, and sounds like you're doing all the right things. So I have no hesitation that this is the right, you know, path for you, and I'm sure that you will see, you know, some amazing transformation. So yeah, just keep going. It's brilliant that you found it and that you're doing it. So I'm sure I look forward to hearing, you know, how you get on and how your health improves.
Thank you. I appreciate it so much. Anyway, thank you. I'm going to say good night. I'm going to put my hands together because I'm spiritual and I do that.
Lovely. Well, take care. Thank you very much for asking me, and I'll see you soon.
Contact. Thank you.
Bye. Bye.